So to continue with the suite of Diablo genuine parts from K-SPEED, today we're going to have a look at the installation of drag bars, aftermarket grips and side mirrors for the Honda Rebel 500. Now these are the parts, and like always, I always put the link to where I've purchased the parts online. But when you buy these parts from K-SPEED, they're shipped via EMS air freight from Thailand, and to get to me in Australia, it took probably about 1 to 2 weeks. Now, the first thing I wanted to show you is, and if you're looking to install this part for your bike, you might have seen some videos where people buy a Amazon bar and then it's way too long, or they've bought a bar and it's not the right circumference, etc, etc. The good thing about purchasing a genuine Diablo bar is that they've considered everything for this bike and everything fits. Now the difference between the OEM bar and this bar is that this bar is hollow. So basically on the ends, when you go to install side mount mirrors that either hang off the side, or you can have them facing up or down, but basically they mount into the end here, then the mirrors that you buy from K-SPEED are a direct fit, of course, for their handlebar. Now, this is a solid item. Even though it's hollow, it's actually quite thick on its walls. And as you can see, it comes with all of the linings to make sure that it doesn't slip about. And most importantly, on the bottom side, it comes with the hole cutouts so that your controls don't slip forward whilst you're riding, which could be incredibly dangerous. So it comes with the hole on the right side and on the left side. Now I've put the steering, I've turned the wheel so that it's steering straight at the moment, and I'm just going to hop on the bike. And so I haven't altered this OEM handlebar setup in any way. Some people find that when they sit on this bike, and if they're short, and by that I mean probably up to 160, maybe 165 centimeters tall, then they do find that their arm is at a straight sort of reach. I'm 170 centimeters, and everything about this bike is comfortable for me, and my arm doesn't have to be at full stretch sort of thing. So I can ride with my arm a tiny bit free, I guess you could say. So it's got a bit of flex in it. But for some people, what you can do from factory is simply just loosen these bolts and then tilt the bars a little bit back towards you. That might help you. For other people, that's not enough, and they have to buy, the proper thing to buy is setback risers. Now what some people do is they just buy risers, and on cheap sites like eBay or AliExpress, they're just known as anything from 1 to 3 inch risers. But the problem with that is that when you buy a 1 inch riser, you're actually not bringing the bars set back towards you. You're only lifting the bars so that they are in a taller position. So in actual fact, all that is happening if you buy a straight riser is that the bar just goes a little bit up. Now, by that logic, when you have a look at the front forks, sure, the forks are like that. And so by going up, it technically is going 2.5 centimeters a bit closer to you. But for people who are close to the limit, like myself at 170 centimeters, at reaching the handlebars, and then who are considering to put a aftermarket bar on like this. Now, this comes with a caveat that not all bars are the same. You can get ones which are similar to OEM factory bar, and then they just have different angles where they go a little bit forward like a drag bar, or they come a little bit back. And if you're after a good quality set of bars, I recommend that you have a look at the WeBike Japanese web store. Super quality service, everything is great. You get your parts usually pretty quick, but in my case right now, not, but it's not their fault. It's basically the lack of flights coming to Australia from Japan, and yeah, that's a story for another day. But as you can see, this bar has a slightly narrower width, if not the same as factory, but the angle that it sits at is a little bit more straight than the factory bar. So you can, of course, turn it to your liking, so that it's got sort of a, I don't know what the word is it rake? So that the angle is back towards you, or you could tilt it down a bit, whatever you like. But yeah, what I do like about this bar is that it is the right width. It comes with the holes in the end, so that when you go to install aftermarket mirrors and you can finally get rid of these things, then it all just goes together so easily. Now, I'm a complete novice when it comes to motorbikes and motorbike modifications. But as you can see here, here's something that I didn't know, and I guess a lot of you may not know as well, unless you've done this before. When you go to purchase grips for your bike, the grips will actually, they'll look the same, but one of them will be slightly larger. And the reason for that is because one of them simply goes, I think this is a small one of them simply goes straight onto the left side of the bar. And as you can see, I'm not doing this with two hands, but as you can see, it's right at the right thickness, right? That is your left side. And of course, when you hang on to your left hand of the bar, nothing has to rotate. But when you put the right side grip on, the right side grip can't be a tight fit. And the reason for that is because when you accelerate, you are actually turning what's called a throttle tube. So the throttle tube has to actually sit in between this bar and this grip. And you can, of course, reuse the factory throttle tube. So basically, here we are on the bike. As you can see, you've got your acceleration. What makes that turn is that between the bar and the grip, there is a tube on the inside that's made of very thin plastic. And the way that tube turns is that it is connected to this control. So that control, when you turn that, you'll see down here on the bike that it is pulling a cable which opens and closes the throttle body on the motorbike. So on the bike, when you accelerate, it pulls that cable which opens a little a throttle, like a trapdoor, so to speak. And when you open it, air comes in, air goes into the engine, mixes with fuel and your spark plugs. You start getting combustion in the engine, and that's how your engine goes forward. So basically, following it back here, the issue that I've got is that I was not sure if I could reuse the factory throttle tube. So I'd had a look at some people's videos online, and they seem to have done that. And what I did was I ended up ordering a throttle tube from WeBike.com. In fact, I ordered two different types, which are just an alternative to the OEM one, because the OEM one was not showing as available, even from WeBike Japan. So a lot of these parts on this bike come from Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam, from what I've seen, written on little stickers and stamps and engravings on parts on the bike as I've learnt more and more about this bike. So I thought, okay, if I need to remove these grips, I can see in people's videos the way they go about it is they use a hairdryer, they heat up the whole grip, and then they pull it off. Now, when they install this grip from factory, they put some sort of adhesive on here. And a lot of people, when they install aftermarket grips to their bike, spray on some hairspray. When a hairspray is first applied, it's of course a little bit wet. So it gives you some time to slide the tube on, and then within a minute or two, it starts setting as if when you put product in your hair, it sets within a minute or so. So basically the idea is you want to heat up this grip, but not overheat it to the point where you melt the plastic on the throttle tube. And that's what I'm worried about doing. I did see one guy that installed grips for his bike, and what he'd actually done was, because he was using this factory bar, he wanted to put mirrors on his bike, and because this is not a hollow tube, he basically had to drill off the grip and then drill a hole into this solid end part of the bar. What he really could have done was simply just drill a new hole for the controls, move the controls in a little bit, and simply just saw off the end of the bar. But he didn't go about it doing it that way. And so what he did was he used not a hairspray, not a hairdryer, but he actually used one of those heat guns. And the heat gun actually melted the throttle tube, so it actually stuck to his grip. And then he couldn't remove the grip at all because the throttle tube was warped and it was basically unusable. So he had to end up going to purchase another throttle tube. And right now, with all the supply chain issues in the world, it's may not be quite easy depending on where you are and stock at your local Honda dealer. So what I was worried about was that what I wanted to do was, in preparation for installing this part, everything came quickly from K-SPEED, but I cannot get the throttle tube in a timely manner. So I've contacted WeBike and they've said, yeah, we've shipped it. I can see it on the EMS Japan website, but it just shows that it's been stuck at a Japanese airport and has not left the country for between 2 and 3 weeks now. Now, EMS Japan usually ships stuff and gets it from Japan to the east coast of Australia, where I am in Brisbane, in usually about 4 days or so. But unfortunately, even though the dollar value, so basically the currency exchange rate, is really good right now, it's literally like a dollar for dollar. Parts are quite cheap to buy from Japan, so really you're just paying for the shipping, but then you can't get your part to you quickly. So just think about that if you're looking to plan ahead and do a build or modification, or you just need some OEM parts and don't want to get rorted by the dealer. So I'm going to try heating up this grip, and I'm not going to overdo it, and I'm going to try and pull the grip off this throttle tube. And if I can get that grip to come off, then I'll be at a stage where I'll be able to undo the bolts under the controls and move that forward. And then the same thing here, undoing the bolts here and then the bolts underneath the controls, and it should then be able to come off. I don't think I need to take off the grip on this side, because simply by undoing the bolts for this left side control, I should just be able to basically remove it from the bar. But worst case scenario, I'll heat up the grip and just remove that from the bar as well. So basically the idea is that you want to remove the controls and either have a friend or maybe zip tie them somewhere to the bike so that they're forward and out of the way. You also need to remove the bolts that are here, and then the 2 bolts that are on the clamps for the factory handlebar. And then at that point, the bar will come off. Now, I've got the mirrors from K-SPEED, so that's what it says on the box. I'm not quite sure if that is the actual part number though, but as always, I will have a link to the parts in my video description. So when you buy the aftermarket mirrors from K-SPEED. They come in this box like this. I have previously opened this package, of course, when it arrived to me. Pardon me using my shoe, I'm just one-handed here, of course. And so here is what the mirrors look like. So as you can see, it comes with, let me focus, an Allen key here. And as you turn that Allen key, it expands the surrounding part of where my finger's moving there. And basically that then enlarges and fills out the cavity of the bar. So as you can see, in effect, the mirror can be installed. Now I'm going to be hanging them down so that they're off the end. I reckon that looks insane. But you can technically put that on the other side, and you can have them hanging up if you do like that upwards look. So yeah, basically it can be installed up or down. This is not a type of mirror that can flex and be 90 degrees and hanged on the outside, but you can purchase those if you do like that style. The reason why I'm not doing that is because in Australia it is legal to lane filter, and if you're under 30 kilometers an hour with stationary traffic. But in order to assist me from not hitting other people's cars or anything else, I of course want all the real estate, if that's the right word for it, possible, and I want my bike to be as narrow as it needs to be. So yeah, this does make it a tiny bit wider, but it's nothing dramatic, etc., etc. If anything, this gives you a little bit more room to see down the sides, because the mirror is, as you can see, compared to the stock location, just a little bit wider than where the factory one goes. So part of the install as well is that I'll be unwinding this mirror. So even though this whole control element gets carried over to the new bar, I'll have to put just I think it's an M10 bolt, bolt into here, which will just sort of flatten off that area so that it's nice, and yeah, there'll be nothing that's sort of higher than the instrument cluster. Okay, so yep, so the other mirror that's in here, of course it looks exactly the same, it's just for the other side. Comes with the Diablo branding. It's got a real nice finish. You do see lots of knockoff type mirrors like this on AliExpress. Now, let me just warn you that if you're not really looking into it, you will fail to see that the aftermarket mirrors that you can get on those sites aren't the right thickness. And so they are built with the intention of you having to drill out your stock handlebar and somehow get it to fit in that bar. Now that's not an impossible thing to do, but just so you're aware, what it means is that you have to basically cut the end of that tube and then drill through the tube. So not only do you need to get the hole centered, which is a little bit of a mission in itself on a bike, unless you've got a stand and someone holding it for you, but even then, you know, it's quite easy to get that hole off center, and then the whole thing won't look like it's aligned properly. So I didn't necessarily mind the look of the bar, but I just wanted to have a little bit more forward reach to get rid of this mirror. And yeah, I just like the look of what K-SPEED has done on their bikes. There is an alternative if you do want to keep the stock handlebar setup and everything the same. A lot of people like to, for whatever reason, get I think it's called a Vans grip in a brown color. For me, I don't like the brown color. I like all black, but I appreciate that different people have different desires for the bike. And then what you can do is you can pull up this rubber cover. You can undo that nut in the opposite direction. So it's as if you would normally be tightening it. It's actually unloosening it. And then you can wind off this mirror. And then you can buy a bracket which hangs kind of like a C, and it hangs down underneath, and then you mount the mirrors downwards. So that's not such a bad look, but for me, the thing that kills the look on this bike is the fact that the mirrors are so large. But that may be an option for you if you don't feel like going to the effort of what I'm doing for removing the controls, taking everything off, putting the new bar on, and then tightening it up. All right, so I nearly forgot. So the last thing I wanted to show you before I go about doing this is that I purchased this product from WeBike Japan. Again, sorry about the... Yeah, so basically the reason why I bought this set of setback risers is because, as you can see, the risers not only go up, but they actually come back. So this is, I'll have the direct link for the part down in the description. But as you can see, it's for the 250, 500 and 1100. So I'm not quite sure about the 300. I am not sure if Japan gets the 300, but I would dare say that it looks like it should fit. But yeah, this was not a cheap part. This was actually one of the most expensive parts that I bought for this bike. And you won't find a setback riser. You will find plenty of no-name risers on eBay and AliExpress, but you won't find a branded one, and which is of good quality, that's basically just not copied. So I'll open this up and we'll see what these instructions say inside. All right, so here's what you get inside this Active Comfort package. You actually get some instructions with this one. So as you can see, it says remove the bolts for the cluster, undo the I guess you would call it a cable band for the cables, and then undo the factory top bolts here. Then it says to pop the handlebars out of the way. You can then install these new risers, and then it says to torque them down. Most importantly, on here, it's saying 22 Newton meters. So I can't read Japanese, I can only read English. But yeah, I'm seeing that it says 22 Newton meters here. And then it's also saying that something has to be at 9.2. So as you can see, here's the one for the left side. I'm just telling that because it's got a branding signal on the outside, no brand on the inner. The setback risers, as you can see, there's the factory clamp. So this goes on top and enables the bar to sit back that much. So according to the WeBike site, you don't need to have aftermarket cables or whatnot. It should just go straight in. In those instructions, it does say to undo the band for the cables, and it does. I can't see that it says to do it back up again. So it might be that they have to be unbound once you've installed them. But yeah, certainly looks and feels like a quality product. Bolts are quality and they're labeled as well. Yeah, so that should be a pretty neat install. Now again, you don't have to install this, but the reason why I'm doing it is because obviously with the drag bar, the bar is going to be a more forward reach. So my way of thinking is that by having the setback riser, the bar can sit a little bit forward. So therefore, instead of having my hand probably around this area here, it's just a little bit back and it should be more comfortable. Another benefit as well by having straight handlebars is that if you do go to drop the bike or something like that, then the chance of your forks or your handlebar twisting and then hitting the tank are actually quite low, because the controls and whatnot are actually forward. All right, so I'm going to go and get the hairdryer now, and I'm going to heat up this grip and try removing it to see if I'm going to have any issues with the throttle tube or not. Okay, so I used a heat gun, but I managed to only loosen up the part that was here, and I'm finding it too hard to remove that grip. So the next option you've got then is to simply cut off these grips. And when you put a line, you basically want to cut it all the way along to the end, to the point where you can just split it open and pull it off. But you don't want to push too hard that you end up cutting through the plastic throttle tube that's underneath on this right hand side. So I'm now going to go ahead and split that open, and we'll see what it looks like when I resume. Okay, so as you can see, I just put the tiniest little cut in one side, and then this is a very thin grip. And then yeah, basically I was very lightly able to pull through. Now as you can see, there's little bits of glue that are in there. So that is what you're literally laterally trying to pull against. And yeah, it's pretty hard. Okay, so now I'll be able to cut the ends of this and get this grip off. So I was able to cut through that end there, and then I was simply just able to pull the grip off. Here's what the throttle tube looks like underneath, and as you can see, I haven't cut through the area. I actually made a cut just there, but nothing has gone through the actual throttle tube. So it's still intact, still able to be reused, so it looks like I won't have to wait for my WeBike order to arrive. Okay, so I'm now just going to start undoing these two bolts, and then underneath the controls, let me put the light on. Underneath the controls, there is a Phillips head screw that is just there, and one that is just on the front side as well. That will enable this control to separate off the bar. So I'll do that now and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, so progress. As I said, I've undone the two Phillips head screwdrivers plus the two bolts for that side. And then I've undone the two bolts that were for this, as well as the two Phillips head for that side. So this one just simply came off and is dangling there for the minute. I've undone my USB cable for Genuine Honda Accessories kit. And then I've undone the two bolts here for the instrument cluster, so that now I can finally get access to these bolts. Now the hardest bolt on the 2022 model was actually this one, the top one, for the right set of controls. So the large Allen key bolt, that was mega tight. So much so that I actually had to use a pry bar on top of my right angled Allen key set to break it loose. It was incredibly tight. I would say that was probably one of the tightest bolts I've ever had to undo on this bike. Okay, so I assume that this one is going to have Loctite on it as well, because it's a critical bolt for handling. So let's get rid of those two and those two, and then I'll be able to swap the bar over. Alright guys, so I simply used an impact wrench to remove the bolts from there, and as you can see, once you've removed the bolts, then you have to give it a bit of force to break the bar and those top caps off. So then what I was able to do is, with those top caps off, I was able to slide out this handlebar from the whole throttle area. So I've got my best friend in the world, my son, holding that for me at the moment. So the next thing I'm going to do is just get this aftermarket bar, and it's a 1-inch bar, so it's going to fit in there perfectly as well. And the first thing I'm going to do is just slide that into the throttle tube. So I'll just get you to hold that nice and still for me, Emerson. Great. All right, so just hold that all together. Put your hand down the bottom. Okay, cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is I need to put these risers on. So I'll just get you to hold that just a little bit forward. Okay, good, hold that all together. So these risers, I'm just going to hand tighten these bolts. I'll just get that cluster out of the way. So I'm just going to hand tighten these in so they don't fall off. So as you can see, the bar was normally in this location and it's now going to be in this location. So I'll get this side now. I'm going to hand tighten these in and set this to 22 Newton meters and then I'll resume. Alright guys, so I have now installed the aftermarket setback risers. I'm starting to get worried though because the it's close now between that part, the cap, and the tank. So I'm just going to tighten one on just quickly and see if I can get any fouling when I go full lock. Okay guys, so I didn't record it at the time, but I was incredibly unlucky. So basically with these setback risers, unfortunately, because I've got this tank which has a large part that protrudes forward, I wasn't able to put the setback risers on and have the handlebars a little bit closer to me. It's not so much of an issue, but basically those sorts of risers are only going to be of use to a person that doesn't have an aftermarket tank cover. So I'll be putting those up for sale. So basically what I've done then is I've simply put the bar in the factory location. So I've just put some Loctites on these bolts and I've started the process of assembling everything back together. All right, so let's get to this side. Okay, so just a handy hint. Basically I've made it so that the Diablo logo is straight to the top. It's not meant to face forwards towards you. At least that's the way that I like to style that I'm holding the bar. Having a look at pictures on their website, it does look like I've got it in the same position that they have it as well. Next thing is when you go to tighten down these top caps for the handlebars, you have to do one screw at a time, just slowly, then slowly, keep alternating. If you drive one all the way down, then what's going to happen is you're going to stuff the thread. So just do maybe 4 turns and then 4 turns and just keep doing it until you slowly. Now as you can see, I've stopped and I haven't got it anywhere near where it needs to be, or at least I don't think so yet. But I just wanted to stop and bring this to your attention so that you don't end up de-threading this part here and then you'll be in for a world of trouble. Alright, so just remember that 22 Newton meters is not a very strong amount in terms of tightening or clamping force, so don't overdo it, otherwise you'll stuff the threads. Because I've got the aftermarket headlight cowl and genuine Honda accessory, these brackets need to go underneath where the instrument cluster is. If you don't have those parts, then you can simply just bolt the instrument cluster back into place. The next thing you need to consider is that when you put these controls back on, there is a hole on the underside of the bar here. That hole matches up to that pin in the control. So that control pin needs to be in here. And when you then tighten the Phillips head screw, which has nothing to do with that hole, but when you tighten up that screw and it clamps this together, it's going to stop your controls from rotating. So that you will find that hole is the same width as the pin that's there. Same thing goes for both sides. Make sure that you get that pin in that hole. All right, so as you can see, I've got, well, you can't see it, but the pin is in the hole and I've got the 2 screws back in now. And the throttle tube, of course, must be inside this assembly. So the whole time I had this apart, this throttle tube never fell off, or the cable never fell off at all. But the good news is that I can feel that it's working properly and I can see the throttle opening. So I had a towel here over this so that the bar wouldn't scratch up at all. But now I'm going to put this clamp back on for the brake reservoir, just noting the up position facing up. So the next step is that because the OEM throttle tube doesn't have a big hole in it, and I forgot about this part actually, I actually just need to drill a hole onto here. Now what you'll see is that they've actually got a piece of tape from factory, interestingly, right over a little hole here. It's like they've put a pilot hole there on purpose so that you can actually put bar end mirrors on. So my objective here is to drill the hole big enough so that I can get this whole cylinder to fit in there. I know that it fits into the actual bar, no problem. And then you tighten the Allen key and that expands that silver barrel. So yeah, let's get a drill in there and I'll resume then. Alright, so the neighbour has decided that he wants to pay his bagpipes. It must be some sort of Scottish Wales day of significance today. But anyway, I have drilled the end of this plastic tube and I've just sort of pushed it to the sides and worked my way around just to the point where it is just wide enough to fit this mirror in. So as you can see, it's going to sit sweet just like that. Now what I was saying before is that as you tighten this Allen key, it actually pushes this barrel out. So I'm just going to make sure that fits, which it does. Next step is that I am going to fit this throttle tube. Now that's the wrong one. That's the one for the left side. So this one's got the larger opening. So this one will be, I'll need to cut out with a sharp Stanley knife sort of thing. This one you won't be able to drill and get it proper, so you need to take time. You don't want to end up putting a drill through and then puncturing a hole through the grip itself. So yep, I'm just going to enlarge and put a split here, and then just use some scissors to slowly cut a hole about the size of this barrel. So I just used some sharp metal scissors, short nose, to firstly split a line down the middle, and then I just slowly made my way around. It doesn't need to be anywhere near the edge, just enough to get that barrel in there. So the next step is that I'm going to go outside and spray this spray down the and just rotate the nozzle so that I get enough spray on the inside of this cylinder, and then I'm going to come back and force that onto this throttle tube. Alright, so the Diablo grips are on, and you'll know when you've got it to the right location because it's just got a tiny bit of play so that it doesn't rub against the plastic control. And also if you push it too far, this end part will start sort of ballooning. So it's right on the edge of the plastic throttle tube now. So now this means that I can push in this bar end mirror. Great. And now I can tighten up this Allen key, which will expand the barrel. Okay, so just a note, when you go to tighten this bolt in, it's, as I said, you tighten it and the barrel gets larger. However, I was turning and turning and turning this and it still just didn't seem to be tight. On the actual bottom side of the mirror mount, there is another bolt. That bolt has to be tight so it in effect is clamping together tightly here. Once you've got that bolt in tight, then when you turn this bolt, the barrel will expand. And yeah, so I just have to tighten it up tightly now. But I've went to go and check this side and I was thinking, oh, maybe there was a problem with that mirror. But as you can see, I've got it now where it won't move at all. So yep, I'll tighten that mirror in just a sec. But the same thing applies to this side. There is a hole underneath the bar here that I was referring to earlier in the video. There is the little tab that plastic part needs to slot into. When you've then got that in, then you again redo the two Phillips head screws to the lower side of this left-hand side control. So I've now completed tightening the mirror on this side. The grip is on and it's nice and tight. The hairspray has just literally tightened almost instantly. I've got the controls back on and I've put the two bolts on for this one. It's a super tight fit on this side. It just clears the tank. But on this side, it's just hitting this starter. So I'll just be careful not to go too sharp on my right turns. I don't think I've ever done a sharp right turn like that anyway. But yeah, the last step of the process is of course to remove these ugly ass OEM mirrors. So to do that, you simply have to slide up this cover and then use a shifting spanner to undo this top bolt. And it's not the conventional way, it's the opposite way, as if you were tightening a bolt to undo it. Once you've undone this bolt towards the left, as you can see, then the I need two hands, but you can spin off this mirror. Now that I've unwound the mirrors, this one can unbolt the conventional way. Just get a shifting spanner to take out this insert. So now that I've undone those inserts, you can see here that it's just a plain hole in there. So it's an M10 thread. So if you haven't got any M10 bolts in your toolbox, you'll need to get two of those. So I've got two really old M10s which aren't really presentable, but I'm going to give them a paint and install them. But I'll be going to the tool shop tomorrow to pick up two bolts for it. So as you can see, we are now done. The install probably took about an hour, along with taking this video. Probably the hardest part about all of it was that I went to go and install those setback risers for these handlebars, but unfortunately with this tank they just won't fit. If you don't have an aftermarket tank cover, then they'd be the perfect solution. But to tell you the truth, when I sit on this bike, the grips is only just slightly more extended than the factory bars. So really I'd say that you wouldn't really need to do this sort of drag bar install unless you're looking for an easy install with the mirrors. So the mirrors were actually easy in the end. I couldn't install my quad lock without the extension bracket, because when this wireless charger is in this position, the case actually hits the tank. So the only way sort of around that is if I rotate this, and I might still do that, rotate this bracket so that the quad lock is facing sort of more flat. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how to go, because as you can see, everything is super tight there. So that's at full lock and none of the controls hit, only just the quad lock mount here is just hitting. So I might even move that to there. And on this side, I'm full lock now, and I can see that, yeah, it's just touching the starter, but it's not pushing the starter in. So with this tank, it definitely will work. And this is not the tank that on the on the K-SPEED website, this bar is advertised to work with. So it works. Yeah. So here is, I'll just sit back a bit. This is what the install looks like when you're riding, and here I am in the seating position. Yeah, feels really good. Just check that your clutch and your brake are working when you go to start your bike up, and just give your handlebars a good sort of pull rotate and everything like that to make sure that it all seems fine. Once again, once you're finished, do a visual inspection over everything to make sure that everything is tight and you haven't missed anything, that you've got no leaks from the areas where you've done unbolted, anything like that. And in my case, I've actually undone the line for the brake here. There is a rubber grommet. There's a rubber grommet just there that normally sits up in line of this ring clamp. I actually undid it because it was under a bit of tension there. So now that I've slotted that down and through, it's not under tension anymore. And yeah, what else can I say? Yeah, pretty neat install. This is what the mirrors look like. So I'll need to adjust those when I go for a ride tomorrow. But I'll just put the bike back down and do a walk around for you guys. So I am waiting for my order of my 3-piece SSK levers to arrive, because I think that the OEM ones just look a bit Gumby. They obviously work, and it's a big handle, but I'm looking forward to having a handle that's a lot closer and is adjustable. Here we are from front on. Still have to change the front indicators, but I'll get to that. Today's the last day of my holiday, so there won't be installs, I think, for around about half a week to a week. As you can see, I've got the wheel straight forward and I've just got the mirrors, the clamps in this sort of position. I may actually rotate them forward a little bit more, but I just really need to ride with it and just get a feel for what the view is like. Alright, so if you've got any questions about this install, please feel free to drop a comment below. And yeah, I'm really looking for any sort of feedback to do with these installs. If you've got any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, guys, I appreciate your time again in watching this video install. I hope you found it comprehensive enough. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to me. My channel name is Juzzy Evo X, or you can search for me under Tweaked Rebel. So that's TWEAKED, or my license plate, which reads as below, 7W3KD Rebel, and you'll find me. And from there you can hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.